Hey, Derek.
Hey, Wendy, how's it going?
Going fantastic. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderfully.
Ooh, I like that.
Well, I mean, there's only so many things you can complain about, right? And
Hey,
sometimes it's like, why bother complaining? Just make the most of what you've got. So that's what I try to do every day, make the most of what I've got.
and as we always ask, where in the world are you today?
I am back in Barcelona. I,
Mhm.
went on a couple of trips, but I'm now back here in my favorite city in Spain and in pretty much most of the world.
Ha!
And where are you today?
I'm in Miami. Like you have done like weekend trips. I'm basing myself here for the winter, darling, the winter. So I'm
Mm.
snowbirding it, if you can call it that.
You're wintering in Miami.
Yes, darling. Yes. So I've
Such a
done like
hard
the weekend
life.
trips to like Toronto, and which I forgot how much I enjoyed Toronto. And the exchange rate is in our favor right now. And I was just in New York last weekend for girls' weekend.
Hmm.
A lot of fun.
So as you're traveling around, you must meet a ton of people, just like casually at bars and parties and stuff.
Yes, 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 yes. And that's today's topic. Things they don't teach us about meeting strangers and making acquaintances.
And just in your experience, how do you meet strangers and make acquaintances?
It's funny. I like to tell a story of I have a 6-year-old little cousin, Nia, who is a peach, a plum, and just a really sweet kid. I took Nia to the park one day, and there were little girls playing by some, wow, what the hell they call those things now, some game. And I sent Nia over there, and I said to her, "Go over there and make friends, be nice, and make some new friends." As I sat down on a bench by myself with my phone, but in a bar, you sit next to a stranger, you start engaging them in conversation. You start with maybe, "What are you drinking? What are you eating? That looks good." So I guess as an adult, bars are the new playgrounds where we meet people. Though there are many other venues you can meet people, but it seems to be the place where it's easier to engage in conversation with adults. But it's very difficult as an adult making friends or meeting people.
I would agree with that. So I was thinking about this too, like where do I meet strangers and make acquaintances? And it tends to be in bars. Sometimes in a store, sometimes in a museum, maybe, but there has to be some type of an object that, or some type of experience that we're having at the same time, where we can be like, we can focus outside of ourselves and say, oh, what do you think about this drink? What do you think about this piece of art? Something where we can talk about that rather than talking about ourselves and really getting to know each other. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's a sort of a thing in terms of making acquaintances. Like you don't get too personal.
Yes.
But I kind of feel like I need that at least in order to make those acquaintances.
Yes. I mean, with the invention or what's the word I'm looking for of apps, there are all these social groups that you can go on. Some you can do virtual, some you can do in real life. In Miami, private clubs are very popular. So a lot of restaurants have these private clubs, member only kind of thing. They seem to be catching on a lot of different cities. I think there are a ton of them in Miami, but it's a way to sort of have a sort of common thing. I don't know what the word I'm looking
Like
for.
an experience.
Yeah, thank you. Common experience where you could at least start talking to strangers. But it is very difficult just for walking in the street or just being an adult saying, "Hey," especially a girl. It's hard because every guy you meet, it's like, is he going to be cool with just saying, "Hey," having fun, a chat, and then going our separate ways, or is it going to be something kind of creepy? What's your
That's like a real thought that you have.
Oh yeah, yes,
Hmm.
yes. With
Hmm.
girls, you have to think that way. I mean, you might meet someone, say hello to them, just in a sense of saying hello, but there's this whole Mars versus Venus thing. If men and women can be friends,
Hmm.
and if it's you say hello the wrong way, all of a sudden you're some creepy guy like, "Hey, how you doing, baby?" It's like, I was just saying
Hmm.
hello, just saying hello.
Hmm.
That's it. Keep it moving.
Hmm. So in that case, you would not meet this. You would meet the stranger, but not make the acquaintance.
Oh, no, 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 no. You move very fast. No, 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 no.
Okay. All right.
But that sort
Well,
of leads into talking in today's guest, who is your friend, who you met as a stranger and you became acquaintances, and now you guys are friends. Is
yes,
that fair to
and I
say?
do have to give him credit. He's the one that sort of did the approaching and met the stranger and then made the acquaintance. So I give him the credit for that. but
bold.
let me just read his bio. So today's guest is Johan Xia. Johan Xia is a BBC, which stands for a Belgian-born Chinese, who was raised in Belgium with a Chinese family. At the age of 13, he embarked on his first solo journey to the UK to attend a summertime English language school. It was during this experience that he crossed paths with numerous international students, which ignited a passion for travel, exploration, and connecting with people from diverse backgrounds. From that pivotal moment, Johan set his sights on traversing new horizons, venturing out of his comfort zone and embracing fresh opportunities. Over the years, Johan has been fortunate to reside in various countries, including China, India, Spain, Singapore, the UK, and the US. Now in his 30s, he is a digital nomad based in Barcelona, Spain, and works as a finance and event manager for an NGO headquartered in Brussels. In his role, Johan frequently interacts with a wide array of individuals and plays a crucial part in orchestrating on-site event logistics to ensure the satisfaction and comfort of all participants. In his day-to-day life, Johan relishes the opportunity to meet new people, especially since his recent relocation to Barcelona. He finds joy in the serendipitous encounters that this vibrant city bestows upon him. So, with that said, let's welcome Johan into the show.
Hello guys. Hello
Hey.
Derek. Hello Wendy. How you guys doing?
We're fabulous. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good. I was listening to Derek about, not complaining about too many things, and I just feel exactly the same way. It's just, life is good. Just, focus on the positive things and the positive vibes. So yeah, doing really good.
I gotta say that's something that you always sort of exude is positivity whenever I meet you. So I do appreciate that. I don't know why you put it in quotes, but
True.
you do exude the positivity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very happy to be part of this.
Well, good. We're glad to have you here. So just in thinking about the topic, meeting strangers and making acquaintances, when we were thinking about this, I thought of you immediately because I remember how we met. We met at a Pride event in Sitges, which is a small town just outside of Barcelona. And we were sitting at a very long table with a group of like 20 or 30 people.
Yeah,
We
there were
were
a lot of
opposite
people.
ends of the table. But then as the table sort of broke up and people started going in their own directions, you came over to me and the people I was with, and you just started chatting away. And I was like, who's this? So like, how do you do it? How do you do it? Like, what do you do to sort of meet strangers? Say, I'm going to meet these strangers and make their acquaintance.
I just feel like, we were part of a context where it was easy to talk to people because it was a meetup event. So if you guys don't know, Meetup is an app where a social app, I want to say. It's not a dating app, it's a social app where people, meet for specific events. And in that specific case, it was the Pride in Sieges. And I thought that, we were part of a context where a lot of people didn't know the other ones. And it was a good time to introduce ourselves to the other people, around the table, and then just start random discussions. So I just took that opportunity. I was like, okay, maybe I had a few drinks, but I was just like, you know what? These people seem really nice. I didn't get the chance to talk to them during dinner. So when the dinner ended, I was like, I'm just going to walk to them and then start a conversation and see how it goes. And I remember chatting up with you and two other Brazilian guys when we were walking to the station. And I don't know, I think from the first hello, I felt very comfortable with you guys. And then we kept on talking. And I think, when the conversation flows and you don't have to force it, it's a good sign. It's a good sign that, the person is interested in what you're saying. And that we don't have to like just, oh my God, what are we going to talk about? Let's just jump to the next topic, or let's overthink it. So I just felt like I felt at ease when I was talking to you guys. So yeah, that's how it happens.
And in situations where you are not at a meetup where it's structured or where like we're all there for a similar reason, what do you do in those points? So those situations, like how do you pick someone, and then how do you say, okay, I think I'm going to start talking about X, or I think I'll start talking about Y?
It's very difficult to say because I think every situation is different, and also my mood can be also very different on specific occasions. So depending on my mood, if I feel very sociable and chatty, I would just pick someone in the crowd. I think it all happens with an eye contact or like a nice smile, something that invites me in. Because if I don't have that from the other person, I don't want to like, just get in like that and just be like, hey, by the way, you're by yourself, I'm by myself, let's talk. I'm not that creepy. Hopefully
That
I'm
was
not,
going to
at
be my
least.
question to you. How do you identify that person that you're like, okay, you know what? I want to talk to this person. I want to get to know this person.
It's really like the body language for me. So a nice eye contact, a friendly smile, we laugh at the same thing, like something happened in a bar and then I don't know, somebody tripped and then the both of us looked at each other and we were like smiling over it. Then for me it's like a good way of getting into a discussion with that person. But if everyone is, on their phones, and I think Wendy, you were talking about this, when you went to the park with your niece, that you just go on your phone, and then it's difficult to sort of really, as an adult, to just go and talk to strangers. So if I'm at a bar and then people are on their phones, I don't want to disturb. I don't want to be the annoying person to be starting a conversation. So I wait for the right moment. Sometimes that moment doesn't come, and it's also fine. And I can also enjoy my evening, by myself with a nice glass of wine and some nice food. But if I feel like, other people are also receptive to this, then I would sort of lean in and then, try to engage in a conversation.
And go ahead,
Go ahead,
Wendy.
Derek. No, go.
Well, I was just going to say, so just in reading your bio, you've been, I think, you lived in 6 or 7 different countries. I know that you speak 4 languages, so French, Mandarin, English, and Spanish.
Correct.
Do you find that meeting strangers and making acquaintances differs depending upon the language or the culture that you're in? And if so, how?
Oh, definitely. I think in different countries, it can be a little bit like people can tend to be a little bit more shy. They don't want to talk to strangers just because, it's disrespectful or it's not a polite way of, engaging into a conversation. You have to wait to be introduced by someone before, chatting up with someone. So I'm thinking about most of the Asian countries, it's a bit like this. And I think, also it depends on the social life. I feel like, for example, here in Spain, I think also the international crowd makes it easier to also interact with other people. But the Spanish social life is way more active than in some other European countries. So if I take Belgium, for example, Belgian people tend to, go out, be with their own circle of friends, and then just spend the evening with that group of friends. They wouldn't be necessarily open to welcome someone else into the group just because they don't meet that often. They want to, make that evening a special evening with their friends. So they don't want any strangers in that group. While I feel like in Spain, a lot of the people are just really open to just to meeting people, and they want to include people in, they want to interact with other people. And I feel like in countries where social life is a little bit more lively, it's just easier also to connect with people. So definitely differs from the different countries that I've lived in. And I also feel like, and that's maybe being able to speak different languages can also make myself sort of get into a conversation with someone. So for example, here in Spain, I do tend to hear, French speakers in a bar. And then that could also be a way for me to get in and be like, hey, you guys speak French. Okay, where are you guys from? Which country? And then start a conversation like this. There are a lot of French speakers in here in Spain, in Barcelona at least. But it can also happen in Mandarin because it's maybe a little bit more rare to find people speaking Mandarin in a bar. So I can be like, hey, so you guys are speaking Mandarin. So you guys are from China, Taiwan, which country? And then start a conversation like this.
But have you ever, we talked about this briefly, have you ever sort of started a conversation with someone, they're like, no, thank you?
I think we all have, and it's just such an awkward moment, right? Because no, it does happen, and it's very unfortunate, and sometimes you just feel very awkward about the whole thing. it depends if you engage the conversation or if the other person engages the conversation. So sometimes I look at someone and I feel like, maybe the person has interesting stories to tell, interesting experiences to share. And then when I actually talk to the person, it's just really flat and sort of boring. So then I'm just a bit like, okay, I engaged the discussion. So it would be rude for me to say, oh, by the way, I'm not interested anymore. I'm just going to leave. So I did find a couple of tips to sort of, counter that. So what I usually say is do not, you can obviously copy me, but so usually I say, oh, I'm so sorry, I need to go to the bathroom. And then I just leave the conversation, go to the bathroom, and then on my way to the bathroom or on my way out, I meet someone else that is a little bit more interesting to talk to, and then I engage into a new conversation. So that's how I usually do it. Or I say, oh, I'm going to get another drink at the bar. Let me come back in a couple of minutes. And then obviously, you go get a drink and then you meet someone else and then you start conversation. So I don't think the first person that you were talking to would feel offended if on my way to the bar or on my way to the bathroom, I meet someone else and I start a new conversation, because that's how it works in a social context. So these are the two tips that I've used and they work. And it's a nice way to sort of get out of the conversation. But let's say if I cannot say these two things, then I just try to look interested and then ask questions. I'm actually a very good listener, an active listener. So I can always find something interesting, even though I'm not fully engaged in the conversation, but I can always find something interesting to say or to also, just actively listening is also something, that can be nice. But it is an awkward moment, but it is sometimes you never know who you're going to talk to. So it's the risk that you take.
This is very true.
Have you found yourself in a moment where you are that other person who hears someone say, oh, I'm going to go get a drink, or I'm going to go to the bathroom? Like, have you found yourself in that position?
I have. I have found myself in that position, and it's not nice. But at the same time, when I think about it, not everyone can get along with everyone. True. So I think in that specific moment, I would maybe feel a little bit offended, and I would maybe question myself, oh, did I say something wrong? Or was I really not that interesting?
Yeah.
But at the same time, people want to interact with people for maybe a specific reason. It can be, a way to flirt with someone, and in the end, the person is not interested, or I don't show any interest in the flirting scene. Yeah. So maybe that person moves away, or we talk about a conversation or a topic that he or she is simply really not interested in, and that can also happen. So I mean, it's hard to hear people say this thing, because I also use it to other people. But I think it's part of the game. It's part of the game when you meet strangers. You never know. So yeah, it's the risk that you take.
So Derek and I were talking a little before, and in this post-pandemic world that we live in, having interactions with strangers was challenging enough before COVID. Now it's even a bit more challenging. And I think a lot of people are afraid of the rejection part of it. So they kind of hold themselves back a little bit. Because as a girl, I go out to bars, I hang out, I chat with strangers, I'll talk to anybody. But a lot of times I'm talking to you, but that's the moment is going to stay at the bar. It's not going to go past the bar. And that's something I find that people looking for more find it challenging. It's like, we can have a conversation about anything here. And that's where it begins and ends for me. And some of them take it personal. And that's something I've struggled with challenge-wise, because a lot of times they'll push you like, can I get your phone number? Can I get your phone number? It's like, you want my phone number? Sure. But I'll block you before you get to the door. So you tell them polite, well, dude, I'm not, you don't ask, it's you try to say polite, this was fun. Thank you very much. I'm going to go now. Oh, what's your phone number? Well, I just don't. And then they start pushing for it. It's like, okay, fine, bye.
Why do you do phone number and not social media? Because I have found that the way to get around that is saying, I'd rather not give my number, but I'll give you my Insta.
I gotta try that one next. Like, how about get me in the gram. I gotta try social media, but they usually ask specifically for a phone number.
I like that idea, Derek. I mean, the idea of social media, because at least, let's say, you leave the bar, the next day you look at the profile and then you see if that person has, maybe similar interests as you, similar hobbies, and then maybe you can engage into more conversation and then meeting up with that person again. Because at the bar, I mean, conversation can be really fun at the bar, but then you meet a lot of people, and then sometimes I feel like people don't commit to making, more connections with that person, and maybe it's a missed opportunity to making maybe a new friend. So I feel like, for example, Derek and I, when we were on the train, I mean, after I think discussing, I don't know how long we were having a conversation, probably 45 minutes to an hour. I thought, okay, this guy is cool. He's gonna live in Barcelona. I'm new to Barcelona, so it would be a good opportunity to meet him again. So let me get his social media, and then I check his profile, and then yeah, he likes to travel. He likes to do a lot of different things. I was like, he's interesting. Let's meet again, and that's how we stayed in touch.
I think for you and I, oh, go ahead, Wendy.
No, I was gonna ask the question, like, is there a way where you decide, okay, this person's a stranger, they became an acquaintance, and I enjoying that person's acquaintance, but then how do I transition to maybe a friendship or just keep them as an acquaintance? Like, what do you look for in that?
I would look for common interests, common hobbies, or maybe having the same life situation. So, for example, for Derek and I, we were both sort of like trying to live in Barcelona and creating a group of friends, and really settling down in Barcelona. So I thought that's the perfect person to also start this new adventure in Barcelona. And I think those are the things that I look at when I engage with people, and I really want to make friends with them. And also, some people can be party friends. I see on their social media that they like to party, they go to really nice places, like, and it's also the gay scene in Barcelona is really active. So a lot of people are posting about their party nights and everything. And sometimes I'm like, I can see myself partying with that person. Let's try to reach out. So yeah, these are the type of things that I look for when I want to sort of go into the friendship phase.
Nice.
And I think social media is kind of the underrated X factor these days. Because, I mentioned it sort of casually, but now I'm thinking about it. It's like social media specifically for me, Instagram plays a much bigger part of enhancing my making of acquaintances. Because with Johan and I, for example, he and I are both very active on Instagram. And so like seeing what he's doing, I would ask him like, where are you? What is this? Like, how do I find out about, like, I would start asking him questions and he would ask me stuff back. We'd like each other's posts, but we were already acquainted at that point. But with new people or people I don't even know, people who are still strangers, I'll follow them, or I am following them virtually, not in person. I'm not creepy, but I'll see what restaurants they go to. I see what parties they go to. I see what bars they frequent. And I'm like, oh, that place looks really cool. And so because they're people that I'm following online, I kind of get the feeling like, okay, they probably hang out with people who I would also want to interact with in person. So in going to similar bars or the same bars or restaurants or whatever, movies, what do you call it, museums, like in going to similar places, I'll probably end up meeting similar people or people who I'm interested in becoming acquainted with. So I think social media is kind of like a sleeper factor in that sense of like, we don't necessarily think about how we can leverage it to enhance life in the real world. At least that's how I would say it.
That's a good point. It's a very good point.
So if Johan, if you had a couple of like your top 3 points that you want to tell people in terms of like going out there, meeting strangers and making acquaintances, what would they be?
I do pay a lot of attention to my body language when I'm in a place where I will potentially, meet strangers and make acquaintances. Just because, let's say, if you have a friendly smile, you make some eye contact, you do like a friendly handshake to people, or pat on the shoulder or something like this, it creates already an invitation for a discussion, for more engagement with that person, right? So I think being approachable is something that we need to think about when we go out, because if you have a sad face and then you just don't look at anyone and then you're just like in your own little bubble, I don't think people want to approach you. And if you approach them, I don't think they want to engage in a conversation, right? So I always try to put on a good smile, and then laugh. I mean, I get into like a very friendly mode, like very quickly. So I see like the bar has a nice vibe, or the restaurant has a nice vibe. I can start a conversation even with the waiters, because I'm in such a good mood that I'm like, hey, how you doing? How long have you been working here? And then start a discussion like this.
Hey,
It works.
but you are right in something you said about body language. Like, I think a lot of times we go places, your arms are crossed, or you're withdrawn looking, you're in your phone, but no one's gonna approach you like that. I mean, Domino's delivers a lot. It does not deliver people to your life. You have to at least be engaging in your face or in your appearance that you're willing to talk to someone.
Exactly.
Just smile.
Exactly. And then I think if, let's say, a conversation starts with someone, I usually play the active listening card at the beginning, because I think a lot of people are very into telling their own stories. They're very much like into, oh, this is my life. I've been doing this, and this is so interesting. And I'm genuinely interested in people when they share, the life experiences and everything. So I think being an active listener puts people at ease as well, because they're like, oh, this person is genuinely interested, shows interest in what I'm saying. It's nice. It's nice because I feel like, I'm being heard, I'm being listened to. So I think that aspect is also quite interesting, because if I go to a person and I start talking and I keep talking about myself for like, I don't know, 15 minutes, the person is just going to be like, okay, why is this person talking to me like this? There's no sharing, there's no sort of there's no conversation. It's just one-way street, right?
That's
so I
true.
think that part, I also pay a lot of attention to that. And in a new context, I would be maybe a little bit more of the active listener than the talker. But then as soon as I feel like the person feels comfortable and I also feel comfortable, then I'll be able to share more about my personal life, the different experiences that I've been through and things like this.
Yeah, that's true.
I get the whole active listener. I'm more of an observer. I like to observe and then listen. Those are like the two ways in which I approach pretty much any situation first. And so like I'm usually the one who's listening in the conversation, but there will be a point where someone is just going on and on about themselves. I'll be like, are they ever going to ask me a question?
Exactly. Yeah. Because a conversation is it takes two to tango, right? So if you're asking the question, then the person just keeps on talking about themselves, but they don't ask any questions back, you're just like, okay, is that person even interested in having conversation with me?
And do they even realize it? I think that's the other thing, is sometimes I don't think people even realize. And what I've also found is that some people get upset when they're like, well, you haven't told me anything about you. And I'm like, you literally have not asked me a single question. Like I'm listening to you. I'm being polite. I'm listening. I want to learn, but how do you expect to, like, am I just supposed to be like, well, I have all of these things, or I do, like, am I just supposed to blurt those out like as non sequiturs? Like it just seems like odd that there's not an expectation of an exchange, like or an equal exchange or an exchange at some point. It's more just sort of like a bombardment in both directions.
Yeah, true. So yeah, and I think after a couple of times, when you go to different events, I've done a lot of meetup events, because living in different countries, and or solo traveling, it also, like, I was looking for those places, events where I could meet people, right? And didn't have to necessarily just go to a bar and then talk to strangers. I would talk to strangers in a context, or a more structured context, let's say. So after doing a lot of those meetup events, I sort of learned a way to target certain people, because I would know from their body language, from the topics that they discuss, from maybe the physical appearances as well, that I would be more interested in talking to them. A lot of the times, I really like to talk about, cultures, for example. So if I go to a place and I see different skin colors, I'm already excited, because I'm like, there's going to be a lot of different cultures together. There's going to be maybe different languages. It's going to be interesting topics to discuss. If I'm in an event where everyone is the same and they all speak the same language, they all went probably to the same school, or hang out at the same bars and things like this, I would be a little bit less excited. So I like to target certain people because I know that the conversations are going to be interesting and engaging. So I think that's also something that at least, if I target someone, I start a conversation, it will be easier to maintain the discussion. Well, if I talk to someone that I already know up front that I'm not going to be interested in, it's going to be very difficult to keep a long conversation with that person, just because there's not that many things to talk about, or not that many common interests. So yeah.
Let me ask a slightly controversial question, or maybe it'll lead to some controversy. So before I ask the question, I'll give the example. I lived overseas for a bit. I lived in Japan for several years, I lived in the UK for several years. I went to college outside of my hometown. And so for 10 years, I was outside of my hometown. I traveled different parts of the world. And then I moved back to Boston, which is where I'm from. Early on, so probably within the first year and a half of moving back, I was at some type of networking or social event, I can't even remember, where this older woman came up to me. She starts talking. She asked me where I'm from. I say I'm from Boston. She asked what neighborhood. I told her the neighborhood. And that neighborhood is predominantly Black. It's mostly lower income. And so she was like, "Oh, have you ever left your neighborhood? Have you ever left Boston? Have you traveled anywhere?" Like, she was asking all these questions that almost took pity on me, simply because of my home neighborhood. Have you ever found yourself in a situation like that? And how do you correct someone, or do you correct someone if you come up with
preconceived
in that type of
notions
situation?
of a certain skin color or socioeconomic status that they think if you're from here, you've never done these things.
Mhm.
Yeah, I get that too.
I grew up in Belgium, and I was the only Asian person in my hometown, the only Asian family living there. So I think automatically people assumed that I've been traveling a lot, that I've explored different places, before that I had all those experiences. So for me, it was like almost the other way around than your story, Derek. But I do understand your point, and it's a bit sad sometimes that people would have such stereotypes on people based on where they're from, or even the family name, or the skin color, whatever. But it's also part of the area that you live in, the neighborhoods. So I knew that after traveling in so many different places, the last place I would want to go back to live would be my hometown, because I knew that I was going to get really bored. I knew that I was going to meet just people that only stayed there, lived their entire life there, got married, bought a house, and then just living that cozy life. I have nothing about that type of life. I think it's amazing, but it's just
Not for you.
not for me. And after traveling to so many places, you tend to you want to meet people that have had the same experiences as you, that have traveled to other places. I think with you, Derek, when we were talking on the train, I asked you so many questions about your your trip to Japan. I mean, not even trip because you lived there for many years. I was so curious to see your point of view as a Black American living in an Asian country. And I think that conversation alone took probably, half or 3/4 of the time of the conversation that we had. And all these things, these are the type of things that I also lived. So I wanted to have other opinions about this. And those are the type of conversation that I get really, really engaged. So I think if I had gone back to my hometown, I would probably not meet anyone and just stay by myself, and maybe get myself a pet and then just deal with life like this. But no, I decided to move to Brussels, to the capital, because I knew that there were going to be more opportunities for me to meet a more international crowds, a more expat crowds that I was looking for, because otherwise it's just simply, I don't think I would have been happy. And you tend to meet a lot of different Europeans, and also outside of Europe. So I think that part is fine. But then so I lived there for 10 years. And after 10 years, you do see that it gets very repetitive. You meet the same people, the conversations are the same. It's just, at some point, I still really love the city, but I wanted something a bit different. And that's why I started becoming a digital nomad. And I started traveling to different places in Spain, because at that time I was also learning Spanish. So I was like, oh, perfect time to move to a Spanish-speaking country, improve my Spanish, and meet new people. And I just knew that at that time I needed a change of scenery. It was right after COVID time. I knew that I needed that, fresh air, that change of scenery, just meeting new people, and then getting new ideas also. By talking to people, I was able to actually embrace fresh ideas. And I think with you, Derek, we talked about how to invest in real estate and things like this. And those are the type of conversations that I was able to have, because I met new people and there were new topics that just came up.
Well, speaking of investing, the person you really want to speak to, like I can tell you a lot, but the person you really want to talk to is Wendy. She's the one who got me to learn about real estate investing. She's the queen of it. So you're talking to the right person up here.
Queen, no. Marchioness at best. At best. Definitely.
But I am going to pause this here.
Yes.
Yes. So Johan, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your
guys.
We really appreciate it. And for those of you who are watching, we hope you learned something new about how to meet strangers and make acquaintances. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the question or comment field on whatever platform you are watching us on. And we will look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Perfect. Bye-bye, guys.